such a huge day for Palantir. This
Right.
stock moved so much today. Let's talk about the other big news of the day. Along with all of the stock moves, the big jump for this stock is also the big moves in the analyst revisions. Let's talk about how much of a move we've seen in those analyst targets changing and revising the future of this stock.
Right. So the thing I was curious about, Bridget, was I was writing an article that's on MarketBeat.com right now about the stock and about the earnings report, and I heard that Dan Ives of Wedbush, who is called Palantir, the Lionel Messi of AI, increased his price target on Palantir from 175 to $200. So it got me looking at the price targets. And when we were on the live stream last night, the consensus analyst forecast shown on MarketBeat was around $98. When I wrote my article this morning, it was about $105. And as the market has closed today, it's at $122.20. So that's an incredible run up, which just shows what I see below, which is that probably over a dozen analysts have either raised their price target or upgraded and raised the price target on Palantir. Just, you know, and you're seeing price targets now, around 177, 170. Again, Wedbush comes in at 200. There was another one that I thought that was pretty close to 200, but I guess no, it was only Wedbush that was there. So, yeah, you're seeing it's something that we've talked about before with Palantir. You're seeing the floor being raised, which just indicates institutional investors are buying this stock, probably because they have to in some regards, because now it's in a lot of the more popular funds that are being actively or passively managed. And that ceiling is going up, which also takes a little bit of that risk premium off the stock. And another thing that I just noticed right before we went on is that for the last year at least, the consensus rating on Palantir has been reduced, but now it's at hold. So once again, you're seeing the consensus of analysts isn't that they would advise investors to sell the stock, but now they're saying it's a hold.
That's at least a good move to get it to that hold or
Correct.
to move it from there. But I think that I want to focus on that $200 price target from Dan Ives. He's been
Right.
so bullish on Palantir for a long time.
No.
And I listened to him on several different commentaries today. He is really, really bullish on the future of Palantir, seeing this earnings for Palantir is kind of a record and a sign of just even more growth to go. He calls Palantir a one-of-a-kind AI company, and it's just going to grow even more from here. What's your take on what he has to say about Palantir's future and how high it could go? Is he the extreme side, or is he seeing something that maybe other analysts aren't?
I don't think he's on the extreme side, in the sense that I don't think he's on an island, because I've heard a number of other analysts who I've followed about Palantir, and I was following before I even decided to invest in Palantir, and they've been saying the same thing. Palantir is a one of one company, and it's because the product that they have is not something that other companies are bringing to the AI party. Their their ontology is something that's being layered on top of whatever software and AI stack that companies already have. And it's that ontology that's making all of this other infrastructure be able to talk to each other, communicate with each other, and provide the useful insights that businesses need. And one of the things that jumped out at me, there was many things that jumped out at me on the earnings report yesterday, but one of the things that I highlighted when we were on the live stream was the company reported a 93% increase in commercial revenue last quarter. And that, I've been writing articles for MarketBeat that was talking about win after win that this company was having on the government side of the business. But then they come in with a 93% growth in the commercial side of the business, which is already growing strongly. So again, this company is right now firing on all cylinders, and a lot of it has to do with their business model.
Yeah, there's so many good things to highlight from this earnings report. I really want to dive into that a little bit more. The commercial side, like you said, that is something for investors to really celebrate. Let's talk about the
Yes.
military side because Palantir has been known by many for such a long time
Right.
as a really big military company. And there's a lot of investment happening right now, at least during this, administration's term. There's a lot of
Right.
investment going into defense, and not all of it's on the table yet. There's still that Golden Dome project. There's a lot of
Right.
funds there that are still on the table. So let's talk about the results we saw for Palantir and military right now and the future potential growth for this company.
Right. So I think the one thing that I would emphasize there is, obviously they grew the government business very strongly as well, just not as strongly as you saw on the commercial side of it. But something that came out in the earnings call was that Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, announced that Palantir has over $10 billion in contracts with the government that are going to run over the next 10 years. So this is just going to be, again, recurring sticky revenue that the company has that really should give investors a lot of confidence that this isn't just a one quarter, this isn't just a one trick thing as far as the earnings result go. The company has the opportunity to just deliver this type of performance on a sustainable basis.
Yeah, I think that's the key with this is this sustainable? Will this stick around? Will this military money still be here,
Yeah.
after the next administration comes into the White House? Could we see something like that maybe potentially slow down anything for Palantir's growth? Or is this, no matter who's in the White House, no matter where the company's priorities lie, or the country's priorities lie, do we still see Palantir's growth continuing even in the military sector and that commercial side as well?
Yeah. My guess is that it's going to continue um, no matter what the policy perspectives of any administration is. Keep in mind, Palantir went public in 2020, and you've seen and saw a lot of significant growth in 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. So the proof is in the product. It's not necessarily in the company itself. It's once you have the customers using the product, they're the ones that are saying this product is superior. This is why we need it. It's not about ideology. It's just simply about a product that works better than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are seeing that in those earnings results again. This quarter seeing such a blowout earnings. I think if we were going to nitpick the earnings a little bit, that one sector that maybe wasn't as strong was the international growth. So is this company
Yeah.
simply an American story?
I think right now it's primarily an American story for sure. And, Dr. Karp spoke to that a little bit on the earnings call. He said this, he basically used that phrase. This is an American story. It's an American success story. But, Palantir has always been unapologetically a promoter of Western values. They're not going to stop now. And that's how they built the company. That's how the company's growing. That's why some investors stay away from the company. But that's the lane the company's in. They're solidly in that company. They're pro-military. They're pro-defense of the country. And that's a part of their business, and they are not going to apologize for it.
Yeah, I think that's why we continue to see this company grow and grow,
Sure.
especially in that U.S. sector where it's seeing all the
Right.
growth right now. It makes sense. The question that everybody has today is, could we see a pullback coming? Is this growth sustainable? We saw such a big jump today, and it held on to most of that big early gain in the
Right.
day throughout most of the day today. Is it sustainable, or could we see a pullback?
In the short term, I wouldn't be surprised if Palantir stock gave back a little bit. It is trading at a record high. Now the earnings reports passed us. Um, you could see a pop in the short term, followed by a pullback. Either way, I'm sort of now, again, when you see somebody like Dan Ives make a price target of $200, that's a 12-month, that's an 18-month price target. It's not necessarily saying it's going to hit that tomorrow, but I could see Palantir giving back a little bit of the gains it made today, that wouldn't be surprising to me at all. But I think, again, it really depends on how you're looking at the stock. If you're looking at the stock as a trade, or if you're looking at it as something that you want to hold for the long term. And when I've been analyzing Palantir, the only way really I've been looking at it is as an investment that you want to make for the long term, as a company that you want to buy and hold for the long term.
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of investors have looked at this company, especially those who got in early on Palantir and have already seen so many gains from this stock alone this year. Let's talk about the growth this year and that tricky question that everybody has, the naysayers on Palantir saying valuation, this stock is growing faster than it should, this company is valuation is just out of control and it shouldn't be this high. Even with the revisions we're seeing today, I still think that question is there of, is the valuation of Palantir too high for what actually exists for this company? Did we learn anything about that with this earnings report and with these new revisions and what's happening with the stock today?
Yes and no. The yes part of it, I would say, is sure. We've talked about this on this channel before, Bridget. I'm not going to argue valuation with people. I'm not going to argue math with people. Palantir is an expensive stock. It is. If you want to look at the price to earnings, if you want to look at the price to sales, it's an expensive stock. It's a different stock. It's a company that many analysts, I heard one from Jefferies today saying, there really is no comparison to the company right now, and that's something that analysts are really having to reconcile. On the other hand, I go back to the earnings report. 48% revenue growth year over year. That was 10 basis points higher than what the company's own bullish guidance was. And anybody that's followed Palantir and followed their earnings reports know that Alex Karp isn't shy about, giving bullish guidance. He's not lowballing you when he gives you his forward guidance. And they came in 10 basis points ahead of that. And so they had a rule of 40 score, which is basically it measures the company's year over year growth with their year over year profit. And any score over 40 is considered strong. Palantir has a score of 94. That's unprecedented. They're just in a territory that nobody's ever seen. And I think there's a lot of analysts that just don't know what to make of the company. Is it likely that Palantir is going to have a 600% gain in their stock price in the next 12 months? I would say no. But is it likely that the stock could double from here over time? Absolutely it can. And I think that's the long-term story that some investors have to think about. You're not necessarily wrong just because you might have been cautious and you might be a little late to the stock. There's still growth to be had. And it's just a question of you've got to feel comfortable with the stock and you've got to make that decision for yourself.
Yeah, there's another thing on the one-of-one company that I want to talk about, and that's competition. Everybody's saying Palantir is really in a league of its own, that there isn't really competition yet. But are there competitors? BBAI is one company, Big Bear. People will argue, is this a new competitor for Palantir? Once there is competition, could Palantir's growth slow even further? What are your thoughts on the competitive market for this company?
I don't necessarily think there's an apples to oranges competitor right now. I do think BBAI is trying to get into that lane, and there's some evidence, and we've seen it. We've had a lot of MarketBeat writers have covered BBAI. They're trying to get into that government business and that government lane, and they've probably been able to do that with some success. But again, we're talking about Palantir with a first mover advantage, and that's huge because, again, once they have customers using their products, the customers are saying, yeah, we want to continue using this product, and they're adding to their spend in Palantir. So that's important for investors to consider. There are going to inevitably be other competitors getting into this at some point, but Palantir right now just has a massive first mover advantage.
Yeah, there's a lot of moves for this stock throughout this year. This earnings, though, I don't know if you want to say, did it surprise you? Was it what people were expecting? Because it's all anyone is talking about today. Because there's been so many people just waiting for that Palantir pullback because it's continued
Right.
to hit new high after new high after new high. Was this at all what we were expecting today? Were people, or the options, people expecting a pullback on this one today? Really curious of how this earnings goes with what the market was expecting.
So I would say yes. I would say the magnitude of the beat and just the massive blowout performance was unexpected. And I'll give you one specific example of that, Bridget, is I wrote an article about maybe a month ago, and I said I was looking at Palantir's revenue and I was thinking, boy, probably this year, probably maybe next quarter, Palantir might get $1 billion in revenue for the quarter. And I was looking at their own projections, which were for about 38% growth. And I did the math and I said, okay, so they'll probably come in somewhere around that 900 million mark in this quarter. But then, boy, by the end of the year, they'll be at that $1 billion for revenue. And then they hit it this quarter. And then you saw the fact that now they're guiding to $1 billion in revenue every quarter for the next 4 quarters. And then again, that rule of 40 score, the commercial growth by over 90%. I mean, it was just a report that a lot of people expected a beat and raise because that's what Palantir's been doing. But I don't think many people expected that type of report.
I do think that this report for Palantir shows how much investment there is in AI right now.
Yeah.
There's just so much interest and so much investment happening in AI right now, all across the board. And one of the questions we have is is there a potential stock split on the horizon for Palantir? I want to get to that in a minute, but first I do want to talk about a tease for an article that we have, a really recent premium one that just came out yesterday, actually. And this is for the potential next Palantir. It's the 5 stocks that are shaping tomorrow's world. Really interesting list here of really innovative companies like Palantir that are changing the way the whole market runs, the way the world runs, and we're just going to continue to see more investment in these. You can scan the QR code now if you're watching this way, or check the link we have in the description of this video to get that report and that list right now for free as well. That's just for our YouTube viewers here. But Chris, let's get back to the Palantir discussion and a look at that potential for a stock split. Do you see that happening as Palantir's stock price just keeps getting higher, or are we a ways away from that yet?
I think we're a ways away from that. And there's, again, if you say the highest price target right now is $200, I'm just not seeing, I'm just not seeing Palantir saying we're going to split at 180 and do some sort of 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 or 4-for-1 split. I just don't see that. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm just not necessarily seeing Palantir doing any sort of split right now. I don't think they would say it's really necessary.
Yeah, there's still plenty of interest and plenty of investors looking to get in on this stock and adding more of it, or who are already in on this one right now too. My last question before we wrap up, again, this is kind of a special MarketBeat Live. We're just covering Palantir today and talking about this really blowout earnings today. Let's talk about whether you think that there's going to be a lot of profit taking happening now that we saw this big jump. Did we see evidence of profit taking today? Do you think there could be some, or should there be some? If you were an early investor and the stock is at this level, you got in when it was around $20, should you be taking some profits here? What do you think?
So I don't think there was necessarily much profit taking today. I think it was like I said, I think the stock just rallied so much in the aftermarket and the pre-market that they're just, it's only going to go so high. And there was some, there is a broader market out there that was probably keeping a ceiling on Palantir today. To the broader question of whether or not people should take some profits or take some off the top and all this, Bridget, I'll just close with this and I'll try to keep it very brief, is, the joke about Palantir is that the stock is a cult, that the people that invest in Palantir were just all members of some big cult and we're all brainwashed. It's not a cult, it's a stock. At the end of the day, it's a stock, and you can have to decide whether or not you want to own it, whether it's too expensive for you to own. it took me a couple of years before I decided to dip my toe in. And then once I dipped my toe in, I went a little bit further in. But I mean, do I own as many shares as I'd like to own? Oh, heck no. But the reality is every investor has to make that decision for themselves. If you're not comfortable with the idea of the stock possibly pulling back 30%, 40%, then yeah, it's probably a good idea to take some money off the top, because that is a possibility. There's also a possibility that the stock could go up to $200 or higher. And, you have to ask yourself, how are you going to feel if you took some of that money off the top and the stock went to that level? Those are questions that nobody else can answer except for individual investors. But again, it's not a cult, it's just a stock. And you have to decide what is the comfort level for you, based on your risk tolerance and based on what your goals and objectives are overall.
It's not a cult, it's just a stock, and it's a stock that's made a lot of investors a lot of money if they got in early.
Absolutely.
So I think that's why it's a favorite of many retail investors who are on the early side of this company. So it all makes sense. Chris, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you all for watching this breakdown of the big moves happening in Palantir after this blowout earnings. Everyone is excited to see. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you think that Palantir has an even brighter future ahead? Are you waiting for a pullback? Are you taking profits? We'd love to hear from you and what you think of Dan Ives' $200 price revision and his new price target on this stock. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks again for watching, everyone. As always, happy investing.